Manever I say ma PENDREAM TV. PENDREAM TV there, I see them yopo.
Hello guys, you are once again welcome to PENDREAM TV, your number one political hub in Ghana and beyond.
My comrade friend, I'm allowed to call you comrade now. My own brother, and the fantastic, very great submission that I align on all forces with. My honorable here also a good morning. So when I was coming to your show, I was listening to me. I was enjoying his education on the creation of artificial state, and indeed I think he's laid a very great foundation for the problems that we are dealt with, because for we in Africa, unlike most parts of the world, our countries were forced on us. We didn't create Ghana ourselves. And indeed, there are some people who hold the view, and I hold that view, that indeed we are even independent, because what we call independence was simply we kicking out in terms of administration, yes, the white managers, and then replacing them with black managers. But in terms of the structure, in terms of, we haven't done anything to alter anything. In terms of the social structures, in terms of the economic structures, we keep on talking about Gettysburgian economy. So we've never created our own economy. It's at the root of the problems we are facing. I like to go on the tangent of artificial creation. So when we talk about inventions, it's very easy for us to look at the great inventions, scientific inventions like the penicillin, like mobile phone, and then say that they are the greatest inventions. I think some of the greatest inventions were social and political in nature. Democracy was an invention of man. Democracy as a concept, as a philosophy. Some people will argue that it's natural, but we had to create it. In terms of the structure of it, it was created by man, and it was created for a certain purpose. Purpose being that when we were created, when everyone is brought into this world, what you have is you have your freedom, you have your life, you also have your freedom, and then you have your right to pursue your own happiness. No law give you those things. No law give you your life. No law give you your freedom. No law gives you your right to pursue your own happiness. You understand? But because of the fact that everybody has those rights, it created certain chaos. So it had the potential of creating certain chaos. It was that kind of chaos that Thomas Hobbes explained in his book, The Levanthian, the man in a state of nature. That in that stage, then the strongest will survive. See the way my brother here is a giant. See, I've gone and I've managed to con some very beautiful girl, and he wants that girl. He beat me heavy and take the girl from me. You understand? Sorry for using you. It's a negative, but because we were all free, there was a huge potential, and in this history will tell you that that kind of chaotic nature existed. And so man created democracy, that system. In fact, even the monarchy was a creation of man. Because when the war started, there was no king, but the strongest became the king. You understand? And having seen the negativities of all those things, at a stage in what the historians and the political science call the Renaissance, around the 15th century, when a lot of the philosophers were writing, were thinking, they created them, even though Aristotle and Socrates have spoken about it a long time ago. There was a new body of philosophers that created democracy, and we spoke about democracy. But historians will tell you that the biggest victory of the two great wars, the First World War and the Second World War, was that it entrenched democracy as the system of governance of choice. Because prior to those two wars, democracy was practiced largely in the USA, Western Europe. In fact, even in Western Europe, it was largely the USA, France, and Britain, because Germany, Prussia were all empires at that time. And indeed, I think I've said it here before, that around the time when the decolonization started in Africa, we started off with democracy, and I'm using as in democracy in inverted commerce, because I strongly believe that what we are practicing here is not democracy. Because there are so many definitions of what is democracy. I want to go by Abraham Lincoln's definition of democracy when he said it on the fields of Gettysburg during the American Civil War. He said democracy was power of the people, power by the people, and power for the people. So there are three strands to it. Power should be of the people, power should be by the people, or government or power, whatever. Let's say government of the people, government by the people, and government for the people. Now, democracy has certain characteristics, and these three represents largely the character of democracy. In our part of the world, our democracy is going to queue and vote. That's it. Power of the people. The power certainly, government is certainly not by and for the people. You understand? I'm sure in Bamako for a very long time, so they were voting. But you see, because my brother here explained, in fact, I've enjoyed his education. And this is not book education. This is practical experience, lived education. Because you can never have power which is by the people unless you deliberately create a realistic and strong decentralized system. Because government, not governance, it's at the local level. It's not what you are doing here. The DCs, so-called DCMCs. No. That one is like, the British, they also had their DCs, and we just followed.
District commissioners.
But when you go to Western Europe, where you see proper decentralization.
Devolution.
Yes, exactly. In terms of fiscal
and power.
You understand? To the extent that even the schools are controlled by the local government. So when you stay in a borough, so let's say when you go to the UK, even in America they have school districts. So when you're going to buy a house, you must consider so many things. What school district? What's the state of the hospital? Within the local, because they manage it themselves. Where they don't play with their property rates, because that's the source of, you understand? In Ghana, what's the state of decentralization here? You said something. I'm going to thank you for your foundation. It's one of the fantastic foundations I've ever. Because you see, when you go into a 1992 constitution, based on our past experiences, because in Ghana we had 3 constitutions, which failed. So I think we were guided by all our failed experiences and wanted to make a constitution and that's why our constitution is like this. When you go to the USA, the constitution is like 2 pages. When you go to the United Kingdom, you don't even have a written constitution. You go to Israel, you don't have a written constitution. And yet when you act, it will tell you that what the manner in which you're acting is unconstitutional. Because what the constitution ought to represent are your value set, the value set of the people. And where you have a state which is artificial like me, you ought to even work harder because you are creating new values. So when you go to Japan, they already have their values because they are one people. Yes. But when you come to Ghana where we have accounts with our values, even in our states, imagine that in how we even govern at the local level, the accounts are matrilinear. You go to certain parts of Ghana, they are patrilinear. That's a huge diversion. So in where you have an artificial state, then you see there's a greater onus on you to deliberately create values. And also when you go to the USA, one of the biggest artificial states, the USA and then the original USSR, there's a lot of political and philosophical propaganda. Propaganda is not always negative. When we talk about propaganda, we think propaganda is but one of the biggest tools to shape public opinion, to shape values, is through propaganda. Your movies, when we were growing up, I loved war movies. And in all those war movies, it was America fighting against Vietnam. And all of America always wins. No, America lost war. And yet, and there's one American, 1,000. There's one American soldier who will finish 1,000. But it was, you see, it was propaganda. It was propaganda by Hollywood to make the American believe that they were superior to everybody else. You understand? You talk about the American dream. Where did the American dream come from? It was a deliberate creation. Because it's an artificial, it's one of the biggest artificial states you can ever have in the world. Same for the former USSR. So I can even add Yugoslavia.
Yes, very classical example.
It's Yugoslavia. You go the Union of Slavic States. You understand? If you go to Western Europe, and the reason why they click is because they are all Germanic. 10 Germanic tribes that the Caucasus and came there. So even though they are different, they are very similar in their values.
When you go to Germany, Germany is a federation of 19 peoples of Germanic origin. Apart from the Bavarians, they speak a completely different language because they came from the mountains, from the Alps. You know, but just as he's saying, it's if Europe is built on a federation of a federation of a federation
of
Germanic nations. So let me give you an example of Slovenes and Slovaks. They are like Slovenia and Slovakia. It's like Ghana and Nangwe. But in Europe, they are two separate nations and have been given their national identities.
Exactly.
The whole of Western Europe is about the size of Congo. It is made up of 49 nation states. Meanwhile, Congo is being lumped up together as one entity. Africa should have been made up of about 200 nations. Looking at our size, looking at our size, USA can fit in, China can fit in, India can fit in, Europe can fit in. And you want us to just be 54 states? We cannot be. By nature, we have over 200 national groupings. You know. Anyways, that's 2 minutes of your time.
You understand? Because when you take a country like Yugoslavia, so Yugoslavia now consists of Croatia, Montenegro. But Yugoslavia is a union of Slavic people, so there are people, and yet because of slight differences, they've been segregated into different countries. Now the point I'm trying to make is, while your country is not natural and it's artificial like we have, there's an obligation on you, on leadership, deliberately to forge strong values, to create values that will bind you. Well, that's what America has done. You understand? And that's what you recall. The last time I came here, we spoke about coup d'etat, Gabon coup d'etat. I spent my whole time speaking about the need for us to create a right political culture. Because that's the only way you can sustain democracy. What we are doing to go and queue and vote without a strong political culture, a culture that will enable us to fulfill the three strands of democracy. Being power, not just of the people, the office we're going to queue, but which is power that is also by the people, where the people are included in at every level of decision making. Because that's the only way in which we can achieve the third power, that is government, that is for the people at all levels. But like me said, it's just off. It's power struggle. We are not having. It's not democracy. What we have here is not a democracy. It's a power struggle. We should deceive ourselves. We don't have democracy. Even in Ghana, where we say we are the doyen, we don't have it's power struggle. It's power struggle. So you struggle when you go and get. They have you not seen videos after the election where Sam George and what's it called? Bomshėll. Did you not see it? I did not see it. Bomshėll. It was on TV. Bomshėll. What I matter is that when your party loses election in a part of the world, there are people who are going to suddenly become very poor. And so, what is at stake at every election is not just a desire to give leadership that will put us in a position where we'll be closer to fulfilling our aspirations. It's a stomach. It's a pure survival matter. You understand? Because why would people at this level still be premising why they should be presidents or not on tribalism? Because it becomes also a tribal. I was listening to also again talk about the tribal. So because there are so many nations and we've not found a way to merge and to and to clear the tribal lines at every election is also a tribal war.
Yes.
It's also a tribal war. People tell proudly, the MPP, send me something. You join back. At that point, when he's going to vote, he must also have a duty as citizens. A duty as citizens is also to choose, because the first political decision is in the voting. The vote, who you choose to lead you in a quest to fulfill our collective aspirations. In our case, Ghana, we've documented it. We go to the chapter 6 of our constitution. I don't think you see any constitution where we've documented our aspirations like we have in our constitution. Principle of state. And we've partitioned as we have the political aspiration, economic aspiration, social aspiration, educational, cultural aspiration. You understand? And that's why for me, when I hear people say that I'm fulfilling my campaign promise, I say no, your burden is not to fulfill your campaign promises. But if you give a campaign promise that will not help us in fulfilling our collective agenda as a people, as has been enshrined in the chapter 6, then what have you done? You understand? And unless and until we give leadership that will fulfill the aspirations, the collective aspirations of the citizens, then coup d'etat there, it will never stop. Especially when we have a legal regime that says that for coup d'etat is like suicide. Make sure you succeed. Because immediately you succeed, it becomes legal. Yeah, immediately succeeds. And see, and Ghana, we shouldn't be complacent here. We shouldn't be. You see, we shouldn't be complacent because just before the last election, Afrobarometer report told us that majority of Ghanaians felt that this sham, what we call a democracy, is failing us. And they are looking at our brothers at Burkina Faso. They are looking at our brothers at Mali. And they are feeling that, listen, they are, at least they are being given a leadership which represents their aspirations. And I think that, no, we can support that. Especially for a country where, right after independence, just after 9 years after our independence, we had a coup d'etat after coup d'etat after coup d'etat after. So it tells that we are people who are not immune from the coup d'etats. He also said something very important. And you are the foundation. No problem. The geopolitics. You see, when Kwame Nkrumah will continue to be the greatest leader we've had, because he understood the geopolitics. Because the world after geopolitics, in fact, it is what has shaped the world for a very long time. After the Second World War, there was a new geopolitics. And that geopolitics has led the world up until now. And then unless and until you manage to deliberately build out your strong country, then you could never be truly free. And that's why we talk about neo-colonialism. Because we say we are sovereign. The fundamental principle that governs international law is that all nations are equal. But can we say all nations are equal? Because if all nations were equal, then why would Nigeria jump and interfere in the internal affairs of another country at the whims of France? Can our Francophone West African brothers say that they are even independent?
No. They're not even financially. They
Exactly.
can't even dictate their own budget.
Can they truly say that? So that if you are a leader and you do not understand the geopolitical context in which you ought to govern, then you are wide off the mark. That's why I was surprised, because our president seems to be doing well. I was very surprised and disappointed that he even considered pulling Ghanaian troops into this matter, which one of the greatest presidents we've had in our country, Professor Evans Atamils, said, do fear them. What's very cardinal to international relations is the principle of sovereignty and non-interference. I've heard arguments that Nigeria came upon the invitation of Benin. The question at the point in time when Nigeria, first of all, was it Benin that called Nigeria? Indeed. And two, who had control of the country at that time? It was a question that ought to be considered. At that time, was the coup successful? And did he have was going to talk about legitimacy or not of the coup? That is about acceptance and the extent of the coup. So these are all questions that ought to be interrogated. But the point is that because our leaders don't even know what they are doing, because what we call democracy, we don't even understand what they are doing. We are the whims of the so-called geopolitical masters. They order and you follow. And those geopolitical powers are so powerful. It happened to be in Chicago when America was trying to invade Iraq. I was in Chicago at that time. And I recall when Gerald Schroeder was resisting the headline at the Chicago Tribune. I don't recall the exact date. I think it was 2202. Shut up and obey Germany. And that article recounted the extent to which America held even Germany's balls in terms of the economy, their economy. Because after the Second World War, then these people, whenever there's a war, there's always spoils of war. Yeah. And they are joining the spoils of war till now.
Even Britain was paying for reparations of the slave trade.
Yeah.
Up until 2018, Britain was paying business people who had to give up their slaves.
Yeah.
From 18 something up to 2018, yeah. Britain was paying.
Yeah. So this reparation thing that we're talking about is not easy. Because they consider it as spoils of war. They've gone to war, they've won, and they're sharing.
The Marshall Plan was part of the subjugation of Europe, and Europe had to pay.
Yeah.
So that's why America has bases in Germany. America has 6 bases in Germany.
Yeah.
Britain has bases in Germany.
Yeah.
In Belgium, they have bases in Belgium. In Holland, I mean, all over Europe.
So even
just to be able to make sure that you pay them back their money.
Even if they are controlling Germany areas, then what about the Africa here? You get the picture. And that's why, you see, our politicians ought to go back to the basis. Yes. Aristotle said that politics is a master science. It's a master science that one concerns itself with 2 things: creating one a strong state, and 2, taking care of the aspirations of its citizens. Our politicians need to go back to that basis. Now, whatever decision you take as a politician, whatever other science you are going to use, whether you're going to use the law as a science, whether you're going to use economics as a science, the question you ought to ask yourself: how is this helping me build a strong state? How is this helping me create a system where the interests, the aspirations of people can best be met? Those are the 2 key considerations. And when I say politicians here, I just don't mean those in power. It also includes those of us in opposition. It includes the political journalists. Everybody who claims he's doing, you are doing politics, whichever kind, whichever way, whether you're a CSO. Because in our country, it's the people who ought to be the vanguards of this noble calling. They are trading for business. Sometimes when you hear some of the CSOs speak, you know how clearly this guy has been bought. And so the best of our society, we ought to deliberately push to be at the forefront of this our collective agenda politics. They suffer. Why is my own friend Anabo, why is he not an MP still? They don't want him. They don't want his kind. They don't need the people who want to do politics for the right reasons. I'm telling you, they deliberately fight against you. How is that one of our biggest political parties? The people leading the agenda are people like Wontumi. Because the MPP right now, the people who are setting the agenda and leading the agenda are Wontumi and Abronye. They're the ones setting the agenda and leading the agenda. After all, we were told by Honorable, what's it called? Anani. Just even President Kofo can't even stand. They don't stand. Is that the kind of politics you want to do? And that's why I said, and I'll repeat again, if you don't take care, what we have, we already don't have a democracy. But what we have right now is increasingly becoming a kakistocracy. At that stage there, so right now the geopolitical powers, they don't even consider us all. We are like fly. You see, when they need, imagine a country can just sit somewhere and give you a call. Hey, jump in and deal with. That means that you've reached what they're concerned. You are nowhere because we are a kakistocracy. We've done politics that is driven more of our parochial interest than politics that's driven by the collective aspirations of the people. We are doing politics where we do not even understand what's at stake. I'm saying that the foundation given by me, and please go and write this as a you should just say it here and then to go scot-free. Because when you are an artificial nation, then the onus on you is stronger to deliberately build values that will join your people who have diverse values together. There's a bigger onus on you than, let's say, Japan. So the onus on the emperor of Japan or the prime minister of Japan is not the same as the president of Ghana. Because in Japan they have one value, they have one aspiration already. So it's easier. But here you have the accounts who are thinking somewhere. See the way the Lumba, the confusion, somebody sitting somewhere and wonder about what's all this about. But go to Kumasi and it's a massive issue. Yeah. I'm telling you.
Because I don't get it actually.
You never understand what I say. Go to Kumasi and it's a massive issue. I'm telling you. But you won't get it. But people in Kumasi don't understand why GMO is such a big deal in Accra. They won't understand it. Also, I do even do outdooring. I don't think so. But in Accra, it's not like but don't just name normal 5 minutes is done everybody goes home. But in Accra, it's a bit you can't disrespect that. You can't disrespect that because that's their values. So when you are a president, a leader, see, we think everything is about we've done a budget and the budget will come and talk plenty on radio. But the critical things. And that's why I'm saying that in our constitution, they just didn't say we have economic aspirations. For you to be in a better position to succeed with your economic aspirations, you need to deal with your political aspirations. You need to deal with your social aspirations. You need to deal with your cultural aspirations, educational aspirations. Even in our syllabus, what kind of syllabus we have.
And thank you very much, because you have to be wrapping up.
Yeah. Even the kind of syllabus you put together as a state, it needs to be guided.
In fact, I'll give you an example. Let me help you with that one. The syllabus she's talking about. Japan and Korea have been fighting over their history books for more than 50 years. Because Japan talks about a different history on the same matter, and in the Korean textbook, it talks about the different history on the same matter. Because they need to, one says one was a colonizer, one was saying that the other one was a colonizer. They've been fighting diplomatically for the last 50 years over textbooks. You know, coming back to the syllabus issue. So the content of your history, our content of history is dictated by European history. Macmillan. That's the basis of our history. They tell us what we put in our history.
Asante history, Ratchin with Asante history. Ratchin has written Asante history, and we are reading. You understand? So, you see, I'll end. For this problem, we had a lot to say. You understand? So, to end, what is at stake is huge. In Africa, you see, we are talking about African unity, and we understand that for us to be a major player in this geopolitics, we need to become one. But, like Nisa, I'm saying, let me use it as a foundation again. We are an artificial state. When you take Ghana, I'm going to end on this. When you take Ghana, beyond, but you have, even beyond the larger, so I can't, it's a larger thing. But even within that, you have that Shanti, that's it, that listen, we are a kingdom. You understand? Or we are an empire, whatever it is. The onus on our leaders, because of the fact that we are an artificial state, the onus on our leaders because of our peculiar place in history, the onus on our leaders because of where we are economically, it's massive. And what is required of them to lead us, to put us in the best place to fulfill and achieve our collective aspirations as the people is huge. They must have that at the back of their mind. And those of us who say we are doing politics, we must have that at the back of our mind, that we must do a politics whose focus is only to create a strong state and to fulfill the aspirations of the people. That is the only way in which we can prevent people even thinking about coup d'etats. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. If you just join us, we are discussing the failed coup d'etat in Benin.
Thank you for staying tuned. PENDREAM TV really appreciate your time and say God bless you for the good work you are doing and continue to do. If you really enjoyed this video, please give a thumbs up by liking the channel, subscribe, and also share to other members to watch as well. Do drop your suggestion at the comment section. Until next time, keep watching PENDREAM TV, keep engaged, and keep sharing the vibes. Thank you.
Dedi kama mamena PENDREAM TV ase. Na so far so good. Say open online portal e wo Ghana. Ah nipa share, nipa follow, nipa comment here. To my best of knowledge, without any biases, PENDREAM TV.